Fair housing. General rules to keep in mind. I got all kinds of do's and don'ts in your manual, but some of the key points that I want to get across: keep records. Keep records. Now, you don't necessarily have to keep paper records. With the way things are now, you can scan, put them online, but keep records. Keep them in the, in the cloud. Be consistent with your process. Whatever you do, be consistent. Again, these are basic fair housing things. Be consistent with the process. That's another way of saying treat everybody the same. If you're going to be an angry person with one, be angry with everybody. I'm serious. Because you may be tested later and you don't realize it. You know, a person may get upset, said, well, they really had a bad thing. So if you were bad with everybody and the tester comes and you're bad with them, okay, well, I guess it wasn't a matter of discrimination. They just have a bad attitude. But I'm trying to add a little bit of humor, but I'm very serious here. Which is why having a process is very important. Why having a set of criteria is very important. How many of you have a set of criteria that you use in your rental business? I only see 3 hands, 4 hands, 5 hands. Everybody got a set of criteria? Do you give your residents a copy of that criteria?
I give my applicants.
Applicants, I'm sorry. Applicants a set of the criteria. Okay, most people. In fact, it's becoming more and more of a requirement across the country. Some states already require that you do. Some states don't. But it's only a matter of time before most states will require you to be able to show applicants your criteria. And if you ever get accused of discrimination, one of the first things they're going to ask you, and I know from personal experience, one of the first things they're going to ask you is, what is your set of criteria? What is your set of written criteria? Hold on to that thought. I'm going to come to a point where I'm going to open it up for questions. Illegal discrimination. That fresh corn, you take away the vowels, that's just an easy way for me to remember. Because the F stands for familiar status, the E stands, not the E, but the R stands for race, the S stands for sex, H for handicap, color, religion, nationality. It's just an easy way for me to remember. These are the national, categories that you're not supposed to discriminate on. Many states, though, have more than that. So you want to make sure you know in your state, like even in my state, source of income was just recently added as another thing I can't discriminate against. So if, for instance, if I didn't want to rent to Section 8 residents, you can't do that any longer in my particular state. I like Section 8 residents, but for many landlords, they said, oh, no. Well, you can still turn them down for other reasons. You just can't simply turn them down for these reasons. Yes.
I have a question on Section 8.
Yeah.
In my county, there is...
You may not be paid for 90 days. Wow.
Yeah, and so my
Yep.
well, you would have to agree to that. And I said, well, I can't agree to that.
Uh-huh.
And it was over.
Yep.
So I don't know, it wasn't discriminated.
I got you. My suggestion, she's saying that the contract talks about saying that you agree to the fact that you may not be paid within 90 days.
Well,
Up to 90 days. And I totally agree with you. If that's something that I would have to agree to, I wouldn't want to agree to it. But on the same token, I would also touch base with an attorney in your area and just touch base with them. I'm assuming you're in a state that says, so in Florida is source of income. I don't even think it's a category. So you don't have a problem. So you can actually say, I can't rent, but to you.
But federal is a source of income.
No, federal source of income is not federal right now.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Many states have it, but it's not national.
Okay.
Those are the only national things right now. Yes.
I do not like roommates.
You don't like roommate tenants.
Yeah, because they always break the lease for my apartment.
Okay, so what's your question for me?
So is that a discrimination?
All right, so question is, I don't like roommates because roommates split up, and then I'm stuck. Here's the way that I've been handling that. One of my criteria, just like you got rental history, you got income history, one of the things that I look at is relationship history. Not based on marriage, not based on that because I could get in trouble. It's just simply If two people are applying to the property, how long have those two people lived in a property before together? You're coming to room in my property. So if you've been in your last property for at least a year together, or at least 2 years, whatever my minimum is, so I go with relationship history for the very reason that you're talking about. I don't want people coming in and then 2 months later they're breaking up. And I've talked with others in reference to that. I've talked with fair housing individuals, and as long as I'm treating everybody the same, it has nothing to do with marriage, whether you're married or not, then I'm treating everybody the same, no problem. So that's the way I've handled that particular issue. I just simply say, now if they have been for at least a year staying in the same place, then now I've got to go with the roommates. And let me just say this though. If it's somebody that I really don't want to rent to, 9 times out of 10, there's a legal reason that I can find. So for whatever that's worth to you. So if I really don't want to rent to roommates, instead of dealing with, I got the relationship history, I gave you that as one thing, but I'm also going to say to you, with all the criteria that you have in place, there's probably something else that's not working, that won't work that will allow you to turn them down for a reason other than just the fact that they're roommates, if that makes sense what I'm saying. For example, you can also, you can say a minimum amount of income has to be paid, each applicant has to make a minimum amount of income, each applicant. And so if each roommate is sturdy, then maybe it's worth renting to them. Now, the only problem with that, from my standpoint, is I rent to a lot of married individuals, and each roommate doesn't always have income. So I couldn't use that criteria. I'm just trying to give you an example of something that you may be able to use if most of the people who are applying to your property each have income. Okay? Or you could say one person has to get a minimum amount, make a minimum amount of such and such, and if there's 2 people, the total income has to be at least this amount. And it might not be double 1, it might just be 1 1/4, 1 1/2, or something like that. In other words, when I'm dealing with roommates, usually if I don't want to rent to them, it's because one person looks like a deadbeat and one person is doing getting all the income. So I'm just trying.
It's like students.
I'm trying to give you.
Is there a difference between roommate and
No, roommate and student, same category.
Because I guess I look at that as like you're all on the hook. That's how I explain it to
Yeah,
students.
and then you can also, when I'm dealing with students, I like as much as possible to get co-signers
Oh, yeah.
from parents. Get third-party co-signers. So if you don't have any income, or you only have a certain amount of income, I want a co-signer from the parent. Moving on.
Can I just say, well,
No, let me move on because I got so many more. Phone qualifying worksheet, summary, open house appointment schedule. That's just something I said I like to do group showing. So page 74, here's what we're filling in as people are talking. Most popular upgrades to offer all new residents. '76. Thank you for coming to view our property. We're glad that you are here considering renting. Here's the way I'm looking to maybe even get a little bit of extra income. They're looking at the property. Mrs. Jones, you don't see it here, but we can add additional items to the property, or we can modify the property to add additional upgrades. We can convert the closet to a, what's the term I'm looking for? When you,
Organized.
yeah, there's another term instead of organized.
Built in.
Why has my mind gone blank on that? Because it's one of the most popular upgrades right now. Yeah, when you go in and you customize it.
Just an organizer.
Closet.
Closet organizer.
Closet organizer? Seems like there's another word that I'm thinking of that I can't think of right now.
You probably got some fancy term. We'll use one.
Okay, but anyway, we can organize your closet for you. We can offer you a closet organizer. We can offer you a flat screen TV. We can offer you a washer and dryer. I'm just giving you. We can offer you lawn service. We can offer you once every 2 weeks cleaning service. Just throwing out different upgrades that can be offered. And for any of those things, if you want to pay extra for it, I'm basically upselling them on something. For 1 out of every 4 residents, that may work for you. In other words, when people show up, I like to call it the super size strategy. Would you like fries with that? Here are the 3 most popular upgrades that we make available for all new residents. You can get all 3 for an additional $100, or you can get any 1 or 2 of them for just an extra $50, something like that. And I find that some residents, yeah, I'd like to have that flat screen TV, or I'd like to have a washer and dryer. I'd like to have lawn service. In fact, for some of my upper end rentals, I'm starting to make that not extra. I'm just charging more in rent because I want the lawn service to be done. And I don't want them to be responsible for it. Any of you offer lawn service to your residents? Do you charge extra for it, or you just raise the rent? Just raise the rent. Okay. All righty. Any of you offer things like a washer and dryer?
All my units have.
All of your, but for extra, or is it just part of it?
Part of it.
I got one person, that's only one person in here, extra. So how much extra do you get for that? $50 a month for the set. Okay, so that's what I'm sharing with you in terms of upgrades. So at least I got one person in the room.
By the way, I got
Who's-
that idea from you.
You got it from me, okay. All righty.
And where I
So,
live, it's expected.
so when you started using it, did you think that that would work?
I didn't know, but it sounded good to me, and it worked.
Okay, so of the people you offer to, what would you say is the percentage of those that take you up on the offer? 100%.
Oh, wow.
Well, now let me ask you this: before you heard the idea, were you offering the washer and dryer but just not charging extra for it? Okay, that's what I'm talking about, folks.
We roll it in the rent.
Huh?
We roll ours into the rent.
You roll yours into the rent. Okay, I'm just saying.
I know it, but I guess I look at the competition.
Okay. Well, let me throw out something that you may be rolling into the rent right now that you might want to consider unrolling.
You know,
For a single, hold on, for a single family home. How many of you have a single family home that you're renting out? Do any of you have a detached garage? Detached. Do you charge extra for it? Or do you roll that in? I'm suggesting to you, you may want to consider unrolling that. Everybody doesn't need a garage. I'm just saying. So anytime I rent a single family home that has a detached garage, that's not part of the standard price. Not anymore. I can get an extra $75 or $100 for that garage from that person if they really want it. And a lot of times they say, well, no, we don't really need the garage. Fine. I rent it to a local business or somebody else who wants that space for storage. And then I just rent it out as storage. Okay? Again, I use detached so that it's not like they're going in and out of the person's home. Yes?
Oh, yeah. But how does that work with, like,
It's detached. So they have their own entranceway. The other person has their own entranceway into that garage.
corner lot or something where they're not going?
Yeah, they're not interacting with the residents. They're not interacting with the residents. Yes.
Kind of set up.
Pardon me? All depends on what I could get. I don't know because I don't rent barns, so I don't know how much barns go for. But I would definitely charge extra for it. The barn is part of the property? Yeah, I would definitely be charging extra for that barn. I'm sure there's people who would love to be able to rent that barn space by itself. Anybody rent a barn that can give this person some feedback? But I like the fact that you're thinking in terms of what I'm getting at. Because I would dare say, is it a big barn? Yeah, I would dare say 150, 200 minimum. I'm just throwing out something off the top of my head. But again, I don't rent barns, so I don't know. I don't want to shortchange you. But it seems to me you should be able to get a couple of $100 for a barn. Yes, Yes, they are responsible. You don't have to. You shouldn't have to do anything with that, other than make sure that it's not in disrepair. But if it's not in disrepair, they're responsible for it. Yes, sir.
I would give you advice on renting.
All right. So you said have a separate agreement. In fact, there's a garage lease. It's part of your manual. I don't have one for the barn. I'm going to have to work on that.
I'll fill it up with garbage.
And ask for additional deposit. I like that. Okay, fair housing. What no one is telling you, personal encounter. Most insurance policies don't cover fair housing. Oh, well, that's one thing off the top of the bat. Your insurance policy does not cover fair housing. It's a real good chance it doesn't, because you'd have to get something separate.
Umbrella.
No, umbrella doesn't cover fair housing in most cases. Check your policy. You don't have to take my word for it. In fact, umbrella policies really just cover the same thing your basic policy does, just a higher amount. But fair housing is not a normal part of a policy, insurance policy. In fact, I work with one particular company, the National Real Estate Insurance Group, that you can get to from MrLandlordInsurance.com. I talked to them so much about it that they finally added on an additional, I forget the term you use, rider that you can get for fair housing.
You mean to, like, pay for your legal costs?
Paying for your legal costs. If you're in the wrong, they're not going to pay for you being in the wrong. But you should at least have a policy that covers your legal costs. And the one time that I was accused of discrimination, I was so thankful that of all my policies, this particular one actually had that coverage where they paid for my legal costs. So just so you know, so you might want to consider. Now, I'm getting ready to say, if you don't think that'll happen, but you never know when it's going to happen. When you get accused, in most cases, they're going to want you to respond within 10 days. Within 10 days. My suggestion to you, first of all, is to contact a fair housing attorney. If you need one, I know one. Since you've come to my boot camp, just contact me and I'll give you one. He tells me that he does do outside of my local area. But you can find one. I'm not trying to sell. I don't get anything from that person. So you can find one in your own area. But the point I want to make here is your regular real estate attorney is usually not one that's one that you want to use for a fair housing claim. You want to use somebody that deals specifically with that. They're going to want you to submit your written criteria, again, within 10 days. They want to see applications, leases. They want you to provide all documents and anything in the residence file for up to 2 years. They'll want to interview. Now, all this isn't within 10 days. When they investigate, the 10 days was that written criteria, your fair housing policy. What is your fair housing policy? Do you have it stated anywhere? You know, that we are equal, at least say we are an equal housing opportunity provider. Have that in your lease. Have that on your application. Have those couple of lines in there so that at least it's stated. If it's on your website, have it. If you have a website, put it on your website. Again, something simple as, I'm an equal housing opportunity provider. We want to interview anyone who has interaction with the residents or the applicants. Is your fair housing policy made available? Submit your policy regarding how do you handle reasonable accommodation requests. Everybody know what reasonable accommodation request is? Did I hear a no?
Yeah, you heard him know.
Okay, so in reference to that, say for instance, somebody has a wheelchair and they want you to put up a ramp. Well, your policy can be to allow them to put up a ramp at their expense. So that's my policy. My policy is not, if somebody asks for a ramp, we don't give it to them. We don't provide it. My reasonable accommodations, by law, I've got to allow them the opportunity to make the place livable to meet their needs, but I don't have to make it, I don't have to provide the things that make it so that they can utilize it. Is everybody with me on that? In fact, so you don't get in trouble, my suggestion, if you have a multi-unit building, duplex, triplex, whatever, if you have more than one place available at any given time, somebody comes to apply to your property, let them know that all the places that are available, let them know. Don't make a determination that, oh, looks like they're having trouble walking, so I'm going to offer them the downstairs and don't bring up the upstairs. Don't make the determination that they've got small children, so we didn't want to put them in the upstairs because of the windows and they might fall out. We don't want to make the determination that because blah, blah, whatever it is, your job as a housing provider is to say to people, here's what we have available. And I'm suggesting to you, if you have more than one place available in the same building, if anybody comes and apply, to let them know what's all available. The thing I was actually accused of was and this was like 5 to 6 months after they moved out, which is why it's important to have records, have criteria. So when they started asking me stuff, I was in good shape because I had it all. But the person accused us said that their son had a disability and that they took the upstairs when a downstairs was available, and that I didn't let them know that a downstairs was available. So from a fair housing standpoint, they said that I did not, I forget the term that was used. Can't even remember the exact term that was used. The point is, they said I didn't make available, I should have made available. Well, when we went back to the records, when I pulled out the records, the one, we had actually offered them both up and down after they moved in because it wasn't even available when they first applied. It became available afterwards. We asked them if they'd like to. We had in writing that they said no because it's too much of a hassle to move. We had it all in, we had records showing this. So we had to prove that it wasn't available when they first applied. We had to prove in our communication that we offered it to them because they had asked about it after they moved in. When we have a downstairs, can you let us know? So we offered it to them. So a long story short, though, they checked with those who worked maintenance on the property, tried to find them, catch them on something, wanted to see our records, wanted to see our spare housing policy, wanted to see our written records. When it was all said and done, we were okay. Though it did take 6 months before. Oh, and by the way, when somebody accuses you of fair housing, guess what the first thing they do? What the Fair Housing Office does. That they contact, they want you to settle. Because they get a percentage of it. So the first thing the attorney wanted to do is, would you like to settle? Because they'll settle for $5,000 or $10,000. Well, I knew that I wasn't in the wrong, so I said, no, I don't want to settle. Most landlords actually settle, though. You know why? They're scared, and they realize that they might not have the documentation to back it up. And you can be in the right, but if you don't have the documentation, it's not one of those things innocent to proven guilty here. They're assuming you're guilty, and you've got to prove otherwise. So I'm just throwing out fair warning to you. So have a fair housing policy in place, have the written criteria, have the things that they may come to check on, and with the stuff that you have, if you didn't have everything, I give you some tools in what you're getting with this procedures manual. In fact, even got a fair housing flyer that you can add to your application if you want to. Fair housing, equal housing opportunity. We support fair housing. That's on page 89. Add that to your application if nothing else. Put it on your website. Because if you don't show that you are attempting to be fair, again, they're assuming you're guilty. They're just looking for enough reasons that you're not showing that you're an equal housing opportunity provider. I already told you how I handle the animal assistant requests. I just treat them just like everybody else, as long as you meet my minimum criteria. Though there is a company called petscreening.com. Does anybody use petscreening.com? One person, okay. Petscreening.com, I have used them in the past. When this whole animal assistance thing came out, you can just point them toward that website and say, go through the steps so that you can, and they'll give you basically approval that your animal meets the criteria to be considered an emotional support animal. And once you do that, then just contact me back. The only thing, I found a couple of landlords that said that they were very lenient now in terms of really checking on things as opposed to the way they used to do it. I don't know why, but that's the response that I've gotten back. I don't know, are you still using them? So it works okay. Are they working out okay for you? Okay.
If they don't have a
Yep. Okay. All right. So that's petscreening.com. Dues. So anytime, again, if you've got somebody with a pet, in fact, if they have a pet, period, you can send them to petscreening.com. Whether it's an animal, they're calling it emotional support animal or not, and they'll put them through different steps, process.
And then you can still get them to pay that fee.
Oh, they have to pay. That's part. If you say that's part of your process. Now, if it's an emotional support animal, I don't think you can charge them the fee.
Right. That's what I was wondering.
Or a service animal.
The service animal, I can understand. The emotional support.
Do you charge them if it's an emotional support?
pet screening charges if it's appropriate.
Okay, if it's appropriate. So, see, it kind of puts everything on them. So you put
That's what I wanted to know. That's my question.
do's and don'ts on page 57. It's a whole bunch of do's and don'ts. Things that you shouldn't be doing. Make sure you take time to read that. I'm not going to go through it now during our training, but there's a bunch of do's and don'ts on page 57. I don't know if there was any in particular that I wanted to highlight, but there's a bunch of, no, I might be saying the wrong page because 57 is not there. So fair housing, oh, there it is. I'm sorry, it should be 67. Whole bunch of do's and don'ts. What you should do and what you should not do. Let's see if there's anything in particular I want to bring.
I have a fair housing question.
Go ahead, ask the fair housing question.
I thought I saw in here
You should respond to everyone who does what now?
who do inquiries, even if you don't. All right, I sent ideas.
Okay.
Do I still need to reach out to you and say in a nice way, I don't want anything to do with you?
Safest way would be yes, to respond to them.
Am I putting myself at risk if I do nothing?
I don't know to answer that question. I don't know. The safer way would be to respond. But I don't know if you're putting yourself at risk by not responding. I don't know the answer to that question. Which brings up another point. There's such a thing as bilingual, if I'm saying it right, lingual discrimination. I might not be saying it exactly right, but here's what it boils down to. Some landlords discriminate based on how people sound over the phone. Okay? She's suggesting that maybe the word I'm looking for is linguistical discrimination. The point is, some landlords won't respond to certain individuals simply on the language that they're communicating in, and you may say, well, I couldn't understand them. I'm just telling you, some landlords have been sued for that. So you may want to find out a way to respond. I don't have that issue because I don't have various language communicating with me, so I haven't had to turn somebody down or not respond. In fact, maybe that's not the right thing maybe it's not that. What I'm talking about is where in which it's not that you can't understand them. You can understand them. However, because you can tell that they are maybe a different nationality, maybe they have a different background, you don't respond because of that, is what I'm really getting at, based on their communication over the phone. What's the point that I'm making? You may say, well, that's no big deal because I never told them no. I never told them anything. I just didn't respond to their calls. Well, they may put a tester on if they feel that you, on your case, if they feel that you don't take certain calls simply because of how people are addressing themselves over the phone. So if you're talking back to some people, make sure you talk back to others. If your process is you got to respond, you got to fill out the form, you treat everybody the same, fine. But if your method is to call back individuals and you only call back some and you don't call back others, you're walking a thin line is my point. All right, do's and don'ts, lesson learned. What can be investigated? Your records, your advertising, your fair housing statement, your criteria, your resident files, anybody working with you. Those are all things that a fair housing agency can investigate. And that's not to scare you, because I mean, if you keep records, and I would suggest a minimum of 2 years, and when you say records, what are you talking about, Jeffrey? Like the applications, or your reason for turning people down. A lot of landlords turn people down, but they don't keep any records of why they turned them down. So that same person can sue you or accuse you 6 months from now, and it's like, who in the world is that person? You have no idea. Well, already you're behind the 8 ball, folks, because you can't even defend yourself properly because you don't know your reason for turning them down. So the accusation is like, how can you defend yourself? So not just keep an application, but keep the reason why that you turned an individual down, at least for 2 years. So if you're doing that and you're advertising, I already shared with you, in my advertising, I do blanket advertising. And also in my advertising, I never mention in my advertising who I'm going after. I'm only talking about the amenities of the property. And your criteria, you all say you have that. And your resident files, you keep a file on all your residents. I'm assuming everybody does, but if you don't, keep a file. And it doesn't have to be a paper file. I use a property management software program. I was able to go back and look at my files related to that resident that way. And anybody working with you. My policy for anybody working, I told you I've got a couple of maintenance individuals. The policy we have, if any resident asks you a question, refer them to the property assistant. They're my assistant, but she's called the property manager. Refer it to the property manager. Do not answer any questions because it can come back to haunt you. And so in that accusation that I had, they actually interviewed my maintenance guy for a whole hour and a half. And he said all he kept telling them was, any questions, I referred to the manager. Any questions, I referred to the manager. Any questions, I referred to the manager. But they were trying to catch him up on saying something that I would end up being held liable for. Okay.
Did you refer everything to him as in the manager?
No, the maintenance person referred to my assistant who's considered, quote, quote, the property manager. And then the property manager knew what to say because they had been trained to know what to say in situations. And basically, being trained just simply means the things I told you. Be consistent, use the same policies with everybody. And if you're offering something, one thing, make sure you're offering it to everybody. Rental availability, page 70. Any other questions on fair housing? All right, let me move on. Rental availability on page 70. Again, somebody applies to one of my properties. We let them know any other addresses that's in that same building. In fact, for me, I got some scattered single-family homes. I let them know all the property. If we got 3 properties available at the present time, I want them to know about all 3 in case they like one of the other 2 better. So it's not, for me, it's not just a matter of if it's in the same building. If I got 2 properties available, even if it's not in the same location that they came to, I let them know about the other one. Because I've had individuals say, you know what, I think I like that one better. Fine. In fact, one of the things I train my property manager to do, whether it's a duplex or whether it's, if there's more than one place available, I always say to them, let them know there's more than one place available and let them let you know which one they prefer.
Absolutely.
Sounds pretty obvious, But most landlords don't do that. Why do I do that? Because if they prefer one over the other, they're going to be far more likely to fill out the application, far more likely to do it right then. If they feel like, oh, I get a choice? Yeah, you get a choice. You don't have to get the one that you came to take a look at. If you prefer to have that other one, you better get your application in, though, because I don't know how long that other one's going to be available. And I just find that they're much more cooperative if they feel like they played a part in the decision. So just an extra tip. Phone qualifying worksheet, phone summary, quick survey, things that I ask my assistant to do. Here's questions I want you to ask everybody. I do that survey for a marketing standpoint. Qualifying worksheet, things to get from them over the phone. In fact, if you got somebody else answering the phone for you, which I would strongly suggest that you get to the point of, you don't need to be answering all the phone. If we're going toward freedom, at some point, let somebody else answer the phone. But give them a script to follow. Don't have them just talk on their own. Give them a script to follow. Marketing research from each applicant, open house appointment, most popular. I think I already did those. Okay. Yeah, why did I? Oh, because I went back for another page. 30-day guarantee. I didn't hit on that earlier, but just so you know, 30-day guarantee, I give my residents a 30-day guarantee. If you don't like the place, for whatever reason, within 30 days, we'll give you your deposit back. It's kind of like a happy clause, but taken to an extra extent. For those of you familiar with a happy clause, it says if you're not happy with the place, we want you to be happy. We want you to move to a place that you like better, not one of our places, but another place. In other words, I don't like people. I did my best to find a cooperative individual, but every now and then, after they move in, all of a sudden they change on me. They become picky. They start wanting the world. I don't know if any of you experience that, but every now and then that happens. First of all, we have to have a talk. Okay, now, what you're asking for, Mrs. Jones, you probably would find more of that at a property that's priced higher than this particular home, because this property comes as is. We do our best to have it for you and add the amenities and so forth to make it nice. But if you're not really happy, you know we have a 30-day guarantee. So if you would like to take advantage of that 30-day guarantee, I would encourage you to do so. I don't want people in my property who really aren't happy, because I find that sooner or later that's going to come back to bite me. Whether they try to get mad and sue me over something, not want to pay rent on time, become not cooperative even though they started off cooperative. I don't want people in my property who are not happy. I find that doesn't work. So, and usually within the first 30 days, you'll know if somebody is satisfied and happy with the property. And if they start bringing up, well, can you change this? Can you do this? Can you do that? No. We cannot. Maybe one thing we can, but you bring me a list of things that, no. In fact, I've recently, we'll talk about it on the lease, added a lease thing that says you are accepting the property as is and you are fully satisfied with what you have. If not, the lease can be terminated immediately. I don't want people that are not happy in the property. Screening. Tips to avoid lawsuit, your resident files, showing highlights we've already dealt with.